Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going over 15 new infinite or instant win combos with Marvel superheroes. These are combos for standard, for commander, for legacy, and everything in between. So let's jump right into it and get to our first combo here using Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards, which is 4 mana for a 2/4. And it has reach, and it says whenever one or more tokens you control enter, you can draw a card. This goes infinite, and you can create infinite insects and kind of draw infinite cards. Well, as many cards are in your deck, with the Locust God, which is 6 mana for a 4/4. It says whenever you draw a card, you create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. So you can kind of see how this works. This says whenever you draw a card, you make a token, and this says whenever you make a token, you draw a card. So these kind of mirror each other. They go infinite with each other. If you have them both in play, and then you draw a card, or you have a token come into play. So if you just draw a card during your turn, you play a spell, or even use this ability to draw a card, that'll set off this infinite loop. Now, the good thing about Mr. Fantastic is it does say may draw a card, so you can stop this loop whenever you want to, so you don't have to draw your entire deck. Just make enough insects that you can win the game, basically. So, depending on how many cards are left in your library, you can make essentially that many insects with flying, and they also have haste, so you can attack for the win. So this is a Pioneer combo, I think, in older formats as well. So maybe there's some potential there to get both of these into play and just kind of instantly win the game. Maybe this is more of a Commander combo. I don't know, let me know in the comments below. But kind of cool, this 2-card combo that essentially goes infinite and can win you the game almost instantly. All right, let's go to our next combo. This one using Thunderbolt's Conspiracy. This is 4 mana for an enchantment with Flash. And it says whenever a villain you control dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a finality counter on it. The creature is a hero in addition to its other types. So it kind of gives villains an extra life. However, if you have Solemnity out, which is 3 mana for an enchantment, it says players can't get counters, and counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. So most importantly, you can't put this finality counter on the creatures. So what this does is give all your villains basically infinite life, never dying villains, right? So you can play this in a villain deck, and that could be pretty nice. With something like the Symbiote Spawn here, this says whenever it dies, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So giving this infinite death triggers, say with a Carrion Feeder to sacrifice it infinite times, would do essentially infinite damage to your opponent, infinite life loss, you gain infinite life. Just basically win the game if you had all 4 of these out in play. So that's pretty nice, but just the combination of these two and having your all your villains just never being able to die is pretty nice too. So you can set up some infinite loops or just get a lot of value out of this. Maybe there's some potential there. Maybe this is more of a commander thing. But I think you can play this in Pioneer as well, or older formats, and Commander, of course. All right, let's go to our next combo here. Infinite Squirrels using the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, and also using another new card, Shang-Chi, the Master of Kung Fu. Let's talk about the Squirrel Girl first, which is 4 mana for a 4/4 legendary squirrel human hero. Comes into play, you get a squirrel token, and whenever it attacks, you also get another squirrel token, which is pretty nice. But 4 mana to create X 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens, where X is the number of squirrels you control. So it kind of doubles the amount of squirrels you have in play, which is pretty nice. Now notice that this ability is not bounded by a tap or like once per turn, as some abilities say. So you can kind of continually do this. Now, if you have these other cards, the Enduring Vitality, which lets all your creatures tap for 1 mana. If it's in play, or if it's just an enchantment, you can also still gives this ability to all of your creatures, which is nice. And then Shang-Chi is nice with this because it itself can tap for 2 mana for activated abilities, such as this 4 mana ability. But it also says you can activate abilities of creatures you control as though they had haste. So if you curve these cards into each other, you also need 1 additional creature or 1 additional mana or 1 additional land. But say you went Shang-Chi on turn 2, Enduring Vitality, and then Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, then you could tap the Shang-Chi for 2 mana. This could tap, Enduring Vitality could tap right away for 1 mana, and the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and the token could also tap. So you could tap for 4 mana. You'd have 1 untapped squirrel, double all your squirrels. So you had 2 squirrels, double that to now 4 squirrels. And then you'd have 3 untapped. Those could tap for mana. Again, you'd need 1 additional mana, 1 additional creature that could tap for mana. And then if you were able to pay this again, then those 4 squirrels would make 4 more squirrels. Those 4 squirrels could then tap for 4 mana, and then you can make 8 squirrels. Those 8 squirrels could then make 16 squirrels, and so on and so forth. So infinite squirrels. This is pretty cool. It kind of makes you infinite mana too, because all those squirrels can tap for mana. So if you have anything in your hand that you can play that gives them all haste, or, you know, search up Creative Behemoth or whatever, you could just kind of win the game right away. And this is all standard legal here. This could be some jank fun potential. Probably not super competitive, but who knows? I mean, this card by itself is pretty nice. All these cards are kind of decent value on their own. And in combination can kind of go infinite. So I don't know, let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. Do you think this has some competitive potential? But yeah, pretty fun one with the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. All right, let's go to our next one using the Super Scroll, which is 4 mana for a 4/5 with flying, and it has a bunch of these abilities. The one that I'm going to use for this infinite combo is this first one, which is 3 mana, 2 and a white to make a colorless wall token with Defender. It's got a bunch of other abilities which are nice, you know, +4/+4, 4 damage to a creature, drawing cards, all pretty good with Training Grounds. Training Grounds reduces the activated ability cost of your creatures by 2. And because it reduces by 2, that will just essentially make this cost 1 white mana to make a wall token. Now, if you make 1 mana to make a wall token, if you have Phyrexian Altar, you can then sacrifice that to make 1 white mana. And then repeat this loop over and over again, which will give you infinite walls coming into play, infinite walls leaving play, and then if you have something like a Blood Artist out, that can just win the game instantly, because it'll infinitely drain your opponent for infinite damage, gain infinite life. Anything that a creature comes into play, that could also trigger that. And then just, you know, Training Grounds plus the scroll itself is pretty nice value. Just being able to reduce the cost of all these abilities seems pretty darn good, even if you don't have the infinite combo with a Phyrexian Altar. So maybe there's some potential there for Commander or older formats to kind of combine Training Grounds with Super Scroll. Yeah, so that's the Super Scroll combo. Let's jump to the next one. This one is some fun, mostly jank, standard potential here. Using the Iron Fist Living Weapon, which is 3 mana for a 2/3 here. So 3 mana for a 2/3. And whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, it gains the ability to tap and deal damage equal to its power to any other target until end of turn. So kind of cool ability, kind of unique ability. Honestly, I don't think I've seen that necessarily on another creature, just the tap to do that much damage to any target. Now, if you have Colossification, which is 5 mana for this aura. Now notice auras are spells that target a creature. So if you play this Colossification on the Iron Fist, it will trigger this ability and give it the ability to tap. Now Colossification will come into play attached to the Iron Fist and give it +20/+20. So it'll be a 22/23. And then it'll trigger, this ability triggers on the stack, tap Enchanted Creature. With that trigger on the stack, then you tap it to just do 22 damage to your opponent and probably, hopefully, win the game there. Now, this is 3 mana plus a 7 mana aura. You know, they can't, you have to have this live, and if they respond with removal, it's, you know, not the best, but it does instantly kind of win the game, which is pretty funny. And, you know, maybe I'll try it out on the channel. Let me know if you want to see me attempt this combo on this channel in the coming weeks. With Marvel superheroes coming out. So that one seems pretty fun. Let's go to the next one. Iron Man Armed Avenger, which is a 4 mana 2/2, a human hero with flying. And it says whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And whenever Iron Man attacks, other attacking modified creatures gain flying. So pretty nice. This could be your commander. Now, note this is in the commander and jumpstart part of the set, not in the main set. So you can't play this in anything. You could play it in Legacy and Vintage and Commander, I believe. So, but not any other 60 card formats, I believe. But it does go infinite with some other blue cards. So if you are playing this as your commander, you could play this infinite combo in there, which is the Pensive Professor, and we just got this one in the last set, which is 3 mana for a 0/2. It says whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on the creature, you draw a card. So to draw, you know, you have to draw a card or put a +1/+1 counter on something to start this combo, but you can kind of see how this says whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So you target the Professor, that would trigger this. You draw a card, that triggers this, put the counter, back and forth, back and forth. So note that neither of these say may, so you would eventually have to target itself to stop this combo, or another creature. So that's nice. It doesn't force you to draw your whole deck. But the other one that also works with this is the Benthic Biomancer, which is 1 mana for a 1/1. It says whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on it, you draw a card and then discard a card. Similar to this, but you're also discarding cards, so you're kind of just looting through your deck. But it will essentially put as many +1/+1 counters are on this as there are cards in your library. So, this is a bit, it's not actually infinite. It's, well, I guess you could have infinite cards in your deck if you wanted to have a huge library, but depending on the format you're playing. But it is limited by the number of cards in your deck, this combo. But hopefully there's enough cards that you can put enough +1/+1 counters and draw enough cards to maybe, I don't know, fling or do something to use your giant creature that you've created, or all the cards in your hand that you have, to win the game from there. So hopefully it's not too hard to win, but this card is cool because it can be your commander and goes infinite with 2 other cards that are in its color. So yeah, something to point out there. All right, let's talk about this combo, which I think may be banned in Pauper at some point. Hawkeye's Bow. Either one of these cards probably may get banned. Hawkeye's Bow is 1 red for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1 power and reach. And that says whenever equipped creature becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. And equipped for just 1 mana. So very cheap equipment, very cheap to equip. And this goes infinite with the Seeker of Skybreak, which is 2 mana for a 2/1. It has the ability to just tap it to untap target creature. Now, you can target itself with this ability. So you can just untap itself. You can tap it to untap itself and tap it to untap itself. So you can see if it's equipped with the Hawkeye's Bow, it will become tapped and deal 1 damage every time you do that, and just do infinite damage to your opponent. Now, this seems very good to me. In Pauper, 2-card infinite damage combo, and the pieces cost 2 mana and 1 mana plus 1 mana. So, just on their own, you can play this on turn 2, turn 3, infinite damage if your opponent doesn't disrupt this. It's even like an equipment, so, if you draw another one of these, you can try to go off again. I know there are some ways, I'm not a Pauper expert by any means, but I know that there are ways that you can play this on turn 1, and then you could even do that, play the Seeker on turn 1, turn 2, Hawkeye's Bow equip, and just go infinite on turn 2. So that seems very good to me. I don't know, let me know if you're a Pauper expert in the comments below, if you think this will get banned or not. Seems it might. It is also legal in, I believe, Legacy and Vintage. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think these 2 cards could also see maybe some play there. I don't know. It is just a 2-card infinite damage, but it seems just very good in Pauper. So yeah, also I think this card is kind of sweet in other contexts too, of just doing extra damage, but so not a bad card on its own, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know, seems really good. Anyways, let's move on. Yeah, all right, let's talk about this one. Is much more janky fun, probably more Commander or just kitchen table Magic fun, but the Incredible Hulk, which is the backside of Bruce Banner, I should mention. It's if you're wondering what this card comes from, Bruce Banner is a double-sided card that you can cast either side, or if you cast the front side for blue, then you can flip over the backside for red. Green, 6 mana for an 8/8. It's got reach and trample, but it's got enrage. Whenever it is dealt damage, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and if it's attacking, you untap it, and there's an additional combat phase after this one. And then if you use Caltrops, which is 3 mana artifact, says whenever a creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to that creature. You can kind of see whenever it attacks, it'll do the damage to it, so it'll trigger the enrage. You put a counter on it, you'll get another combat, attack again, get another counter, get another combat. Go infinite with your combats, assuming your opponent can't answer the Hulk. But kind of cool that the Hulk has infinite rage, essentially, with this. It really doesn't like these attacks, I think. So we're going to watch out. The Hulk would probably, if he stepped on one of these attacks, be pretty upset, it seems. So anyways, yeah, this seems like a fun one to try to pull off in, maybe more casual formats, but goes infinite nonetheless. All right, let's go to another infinite +1/+1 counters combo. This one using Captain Marvel Apex Avenger. This one again from the Commander or Jumpstart set. So for those formats where this is legal. It is a decent card. It's got some, it's a 4/4 flying and double strike and indestructible. So it's pretty nice stats. And it says whenever you put one or more counters on another creature, if it's not a Kree, you can put the same number and kind of counters on Captain Marvel. Now with the Wildwood Scourge, this one is a 1 green and X, 0/0, and enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. It says whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on another non-Hydra, so this is a non-Hydra, creature you control, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So you can kind of see where this is going. If you have the Captain Marvel in play, all you have to do is play this for at least X is 1 to put a +1/+1 counter on it. This will trigger this ability whenever one or more counters are put on another creature. You put a +1/+1 counter here, and then that will trigger this ability whenever a +1/+1 counter are put on another creature. You put a +1/+1 counter on this one. And then you got to do the same here, and then the same here, and then the same here. Ding, 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 and then you just kind of go infinite counters. Now, let me just read this. Whenever you may, so this is a may ability, just double checking. So you can't stop the combo. It won't like draw you the game, which is nice. So there's a may there, which is good. So you can just kind of go infinite big creatures for both of them. Maybe some way to give them haste, attack for the win, and have fun with that combo for sure. All right, let's go to, I love this one because you can actually draft this combo. Pretty funny that they put the Fantastic Four all together in this set, and they go infinite together. So if you're not aware of this combo, I'll talk about how this works. The Human Torch Johnny Storm is 3 mana for 2/2. It says, whenever you draw a card, if you control another hero, it deals 1 damage to a target opponent. So let's just say you have all 4 of these out. Let's just say you got lucky and you drafted a 4-color deck, and you have all 4 of these out. You could do this in standard as well, of course, but it would be fun to try to pull this off in limited or sealed deck or something, but seems unlikely you'll get all of them, but you never know. Okay, so let's just say you have all these out, and then it's your draw step. You draw a card. It does 1 damage to target opponent. Then the thing says whenever one or more heroes you control deal damage to a player, which you just did, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Okay, cool, we get the counters here. Invisible Woman says then whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on one or more other heroes you control, which you just did, you create a 0/4 colorless wall token with Defender. Great, so you get a token. And then Mr. Fantastic, as we learned earlier, whenever one or more tokens come into play, you draw a card. Great, so the token comes into play, you draw a card, deals 1 damage, and then gets the counter, makes the token, draws the card. So essentially you need to, I guess you will, this is again limited by the number of cards in your deck because you could deck yourself. This is a May ability, so you can stop the combo if you need to, but as long as you have enough cards in your deck to continue this, you'll just ping your opponent with enough damage to win, which is kind of cool, or just create like a giant board state. The thing will get huge, you'll make a bunch of walls, draw a bunch of cards, do a bunch of damage. Hopefully that's good enough to win the game on that turn, but yeah, some fun infinite combo within these 4 cards together. All right, let's talk about the Absorbing Man, which is 3 mana for a 4/4 human villain with vigilance. Not bad stats on its own. It says at the beginning of your first main phase, until your next turn, it becomes a copy of up to 1 target artifact, non-aura, enchantment, or land, except its name is Absorbing Man. He's a legendary 4/4 human villain creature, in addition to his other types, and he has vigilance. So if you have Dark Depths out, now Dark Depths makes this 2020 Marit Lage token, and you can pay 3 mana to remove an ice counter, but it also says when it has no ice counters on it, you sacrifice it, and then if you do, you make the indestructible 2020 Black Avatar creature token with flying named Marit Lage. So if you have Dark Depths out, you play this, you do have to wait for your next main phase to trigger this, then you make this a copy of Dark Depths. Now it will become a copy, but it has no counters on it. So it says if there's no counters on it, you sacrifice it and make the Marit Lage. So you sacrifice your Absorbing Man. You do get to keep your Dark Depths, which is kind of nice. Most of the Dark Depths combos, you have to like sacrifice it because of the legendary rule, I believe. So this one you do get to keep the Dark Depths. This turns into a 2020 Marit Lage. Hopefully that's good enough to win you the game. You can just fling it if you want to do 20 damage. That's kind of the instant win, or some other way to give it haste to attack right away could be nice for an instant win. But yeah, some interesting potential. I don't know if this is necessarily better than other ways of using Dark Depths, but it is an additional way of using Dark Depths. And this card is, not terrible on its own. The stats are fine, and could have some other uses in your deck. So maybe there's some potential for this to see play in 60 card formats. I think this is banned in Modern. Maybe Legacy, I think it's legal. But yeah, and maybe even Commander. This could be your Commander and you play the Dark Depths in it as well. All right, let's go to our next one, which is infinite life and damage using Heroic Feast. Here is, I think, the thing, eating a sandwich. Having his Heroic Feast. And this is 3 mana for an enchantment. When it enters, you create a food token. And whenever you gain life, choose up to that many target creatures you control and put a +1/+1 counter on each of them. Now, this goes infinite with Walking Ballista and any way to give it lifelink. Walking Ballista enters with X +1/+1 counters. You need to have at least 2 counters on it, so pay 4 mana for this. Or any other way to give it counters. Give it 2 counters, and then you can remove one of the counters to do 1 damage to a target creature or player. Now, if you have a way to give it lifelink again, so like a Basilisk Collar, pretty easy to give it lifelink, or there's many spells in Magic that can give the Walking Ballista lifelink. But if you give it lifelink and you remove a counter from it to do 1 damage to your opponent, it'll also gain you 1 life. Now that will trigger the Heroic Feast, which says whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on something, put a +1/+1 counter back on the Walking Ballista, remove the counter, do a damage, gain a life, get another counter on here, and remove the counter, do a damage, gain a life, go infinite. So yeah, 3 card infinite. There are other infinite combos with Walking Ballista, but this is just another one that, has some redundancy. If you want to get some redundancy to a Walking Ballista combo, could be useful potentially. But yeah, let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. All right. Vision Quest, one-shot Colossus combos. There's a couple of these. One is standard legal, and the other one older formats. But let's read Vision Quest, which is 2 mana and X for sorcery. Search your library and or graveyard for an artifact creature card with mana value X or less. Put it on the battlefield with X additional +1/+1 counters on it. If X is 4 or greater, it gains haste until end of turn. And if you search your library this way, you shuffle. Okay, so if you're paying a lot of mana and you're getting a Blightsteel Colossus, that would be 14 total mana, or Darksteel Colossus 13 total mana. This would put the Blightsteel Colossus, for example, directly into play with 12 additional +1/+1 counters on it. So that would be a 23. It would also give it haste because of the X is 4, and then you could attack your opponent with a 23 trample, infect, indestructible creature, which would probably win the game because you only need 10 of that damage to connect to win the game. So that's pretty nice because infect gives them poison counters. Darksteel Colossus is a little cheaper. You only have to play 13. This would create a 22 trample, indestructible creature, which may just be good enough to win the game on its own in standard. So you would have to get up to 13 mana. It's not impossible with like loot and other things that can double your mana, Badger Cub maybe, things like that. You can certainly get up to that much mana in standard. It is possible. Not a super competitive combo probably, but something that could be fun maybe in Commander or more casual formats that you just kind of one-shot people with Vision Quest. All right, let's go to the Wondrous Wasp combo. This card I think is pretty good, just like a competitive card from the set. Could see play in other contexts, but does work pretty nicely with Death Shadow. So let's read it. It's 2 mana for a 2/1. It's got flash and flying, and whenever it enters, you tap up to 1 target creature. And it loses all abilities for as long as the Wondrous Wasp remains on the battlefield. So Death Shadow is a 1 mana 13/13, but it gets -X, where X is your life total. So you basically need to have less than 13 life for this to come into play and stay into play. Like if you have 12 life, it's a 1/1. If you have 10 life, then it's a... Sorry, if you have 10 life, then it's a 10/10. Not 10/10. If you're 10 life, it's a 3/3. But it doesn't really matter with this combo because say it is a 3/3 if you have 10 life and you play this and you attack, then if your opponent doesn't block, or perhaps even if they do block, you could flash in the Wondrous Wasp and target your own Death Shadow. Notice it doesn't say your opponent's creatures only, which you can use it on your opponent's creatures, which is pretty nice to kind of neutralize them, but you can use it on your own creature. It'll remove this ability. It loses all abilities permanently, and it'll permanently just be a 13/13 for 1 mana, which is pretty nice. There's combos with Teamer Battle Rage on the Death Shadow, which is nice to give it double strike and trample. That can kind of be your instant win. So if you just had this out, in the first couple turns, which is not too hard in, say, Modern, this card does see some play in Modern occasionally, and then attack with it, your opponent blocks or doesn't block, flash this in for 2 mana, Teamer Battle Rage for 2 mana, and just win. So, could be a combo to think about. And these two cards, kind of on their own are decent. So maybe there's some utility there. All right, let's do, oh yeah, this is just like a very funny combo that I thought about with the Serpent Society, kind of dependent on what your opponent has in their hand or what they're doing. However, I was trying to think about the Serpent Society. It's a 3 mana, 3/4 with Death Touch, so pretty decent stats on its own. But it's got this very unique ward ability that you give your opponent 5 poison counters. And then whenever another creature you control with Death Touch dies, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Good abilities overall, like decent stats. However, to kind of have an instant win with this, I thought it would be really funny if somehow you took control of your opponent's next turn, you had this out, say you mind-slavered your opponent, or there's other ways to gain control of your opponent's turn, and then they had 2 cards that could target the Serpent Society. The problem with the Serpent Society is, like, if they target it and kill it the first time, they can just get the 5 poison counters, or they can just not pay the ward if they don't want to. But if you control their turn and they have 2 things that can target the Serpent Society, you just make them cast both of them and pay the ward for 5 and then they lose because they get 10 poison counters. So that's my funny jank Serpent Society combo. Could be fun to pull off in Commander or just kitchen table magic or whatever you want to do. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that one. All right, and lastly, bonus combo here. I made a video for this on my channel. Maybe I'll put a link to that below if you want to go into a little bit more depths of a little animation I made for this potential turn 1 in standard 28 damage combo, which uses the new Quicksilver, which is 1 mana for a 1/1 with haste, and starts on the battlefield if it's in your opening hand. Also, Leyline of Resonance starts on the battlefield if it's in your opening hand. It copies instants and sorceries that you cast that target a creature, and then if you have 1 land and then you play Mox Jasper, you counter it with an offer you can't refuse. This gives you 2 treasures, so you get 2 mana essentially on turn 1, and then you cast the Reckless Ransacking, targeting your Quicksilver. It gets copied by the Leyline of Resonance, so you get a 7 power, a 7/5 Quicksilver. You make 2 treasures from the Ransacking, and then the last card you need in your opening hand is Bulk Up, which doubles the power of a creature. Target the Quicksilver again. So remember, it has 7 power. The Bulk Up gets copied by Leyline, and then it gets to 14 and then 28 power on turn 1 with haste with the 7-card hand. Very unlikely, but magical Christmas land. But kind of funny that there is a turn 1 win. Now, in standard that you could potentially pull off, take a look at the video if you're interested in the animation for that. And that, I believe, this is the bonus one. So actually 16 combos. There's actually even more in there. But 16 combos, infinite or instant win combos with Marvel superheroes. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think about any of these or any other combos that you can think of with Marvel superheroes that you're looking forward to playing. I will be playing in early access event coming up next week. And if you have any other ideas, any requests for decks from the standard portion of that event, I will be brewing up some fun stuff and then posting those decks to the channel in the days after that event. So stick to the channel for that if you want to see some fun combos coming up on the channel. All right, thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.